Hello, Matthew. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I was saying just before we started recording, I was saying I feel so grateful to be able to sit down with you and have this yarn with you because you're somebody that, you I think were the first or second BJJ Black Belt in Australia. You created and lead and still operate the federation here in Australia. You bring the biggest competitions, the Pan Packs here in Australia. You've done so for many, many years. And you're an absolute pioneer in the beautiful art of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, paving the way from the very beginning for us all here in Australia. And there's obviously much, much more to you and who you are, Pete. Um, but yeah, it's just really, just want to extend that gratitude for your time today.
Yeah, it's all my pleasure, Matthew, and I'm happy to share with you and your listeners and viewers whatever I can. But I'll just say one thing that when you love something, you don't keep track of it yourself, what you're doing with it that much. You just continue on because it just becomes part of your natural part of you to continue doing what you're doing, and it just comes out of love. So I love jiu-jitsu and I always have. So anything I do is not done for a specific reward or plan. It's just done because it naturally feels good.
And that's such a beautiful principle for us to all be able to live our life from, isn't it? Doing what
Yes.
feels right and what we love.
Yes. And I think if you're doing something you love and it's not, adversely affecting others, even better if it's helping others, I think that's probably what we're here on this earth to do.
Do you feel like your relationship with jiu-jitsu has changed and the reason why you do what you do? And even perhaps for you, because you're such a contributor, the leader for Brazilian jiu-jitsu across Australia, even in that leadership role, do you feel that why you do what you do has changed over the decades?
I think over time, I have realized that things do change quite radically. And also, there's a lot of different viewpoints that different people have. So the more people that are training and competing in jiu-jitsu, I have realized in the last few decades that all of those views are valid. And there's not just one view. So there's many, many views. And after a while, I've learned to respect all of those views. Perhaps, 20 years ago, I thought there was just one view in jiu-jitsu. But now with the sport being so big in Australia, I actually appreciate all the views, and I find that interesting to see all the different views in jiu-jitsu.
What's a controversial view that once upon a time you didn't appreciate and now that you do?
Controversial.
Yeah. Also, something that because I really appreciate what you've said in terms of you you now appreciate all the different views, right? And I can imagine earlier on, before you have the wisdom that you hold in this sense today, there might have been a view that was very opposite to the way that you see things nowadays, or the way that you've learned to accept nowadays. So what I'm really asking is whether there's sort of like a what you looked at as once being sort of like an extremely different view that now you've learned to see some positives in that view.
I guess I've seen people competing, and a lot of them you can look and I can see that they're not very technical. And as far as the world stage goes, they're not really going to go very far in jiu-jitsu.
Mm,
But I probably would have been a little bit less understanding of that 20 years ago, whereas now I'm just thrilled that for them, they're excited in what they're doing. They're loving what they're doing, and I really appreciate the fact that they love and enjoy doing what they're doing, even though um, they're not going to be a world champion. And so I probably have left that area of always trying to do your best to be a world champion, try to train your hardest, because I understand that there's different people around and different people want different things out of jiu-jitsu. And a lot of them just want to compete just to have fun.
mm,
I've seen people lose their first fight and throw their hands up in the air with excitement as if they've just won the world championship.
mm.
For them, just coming out on the mat was a big achievement. So I love that part of jiu-jitsu, how that's grown. Um,
Yes.
the other thing also from a team's point of view, probably 20 years ago, I was probably more harder on myself, hoping to be in jiu-jitsu can win first place. now I have just as much enjoyment of any team winning first place as what I would if DeBean Jiu-Jitsu won.
Yes.
Don't really care too much if we win or lose, so long as all the individuals are getting out of the event what they wanted to get out, I'm happy.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. I really appreciate this because if when we look at negotiating life's events and the things that we might even look at right now as being really important to us, it's incredible how many times we actually achieve a particular outcome. And even if we win that outcome, we might be negotiating a significant sponsorship deal, or we might be competing in jiu-jitsu, win what, we reach the pinnacle and win as champion of our division in the world. Not that I've ever done that or many of us have, but just say there's a goal that you really aspired to achieve and you achieve it. It's beautiful when you get there, but how many times do you reach that goal and then a week later, a month later, a year later, a decade later, the goal itself and having reached there wasn't as life-changing as what you'd built it up to be.
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, and so I can really appreciate what you were saying in terms of the different levels of appreciation, the different reasons for doing something, and the appreciation for each of those differences.
Yeah, and the other thing is that probably 20 years ago, if you had said what religion are you, Pete, I would have said, oh, I don't know, you know. Whereas now my religion is based on karma. So
Mm,
and I think karma is a wonderful religion to have because you know, what you do to other people is probably what you can expect to come back to yourself. And I think karma has these amazing roles. Like you might be expecting to win a competition and you don't for some reason, but there's probably a reason that you're not aware of why you didn't. Maybe you have to do something else correct in your life before all the dominoes fall in your direction. It's so that's made me realize a lot of the time that jiu-jitsu is very much involved and embedded in our lives. And if something's not quite right with your life, you could be having troubles at home, or you could have this issue or whatever. Sometimes that can be reflected on the mat. So when everything in life is going really, really smoothly, our jiu-jitsu usually happens to go really well too.
mm,
So if it's not going smoothly and in a competition you expect to win and you might lose, maybe it's an indication that you should be looking at other things in your life and say, well, it wasn't just about I had a bad triangle, it was something else.
mm.
And
Yes,
recently there was I don't know if you watched the Australian Open or not.
a little bit of it.
Yes. Yeah, a little bit. I didn't watch a lot, but just a few things. But there was a interview from Madison Keys who won the women, and that was very interesting. I recommend someone to try and chase that down and have a listen to it because she was saying that for years and years she had so much pressure on herself. She had to win a Grand Slam. She had to win a Grand Slam, and that pressure was actually stopping her from winning a Grand Slam
Mm,
because she used to think if I don't win a Grand Slam, I'm never going to be any good at tennis. I won't be remembered for anything. But then she lost all that through some counseling and started to think, okay, I am a good tennis player. I have done really, really well. And at the Australian Open, I think she beat something. She came in there at number 22 seed or something and beat like three or four of the best in a row
mm,
to win the whole thing. And she said that was because I had no high expectations on myself. I was calm and relaxed, and I related that directly to jiu-jitsu.
yes.
A lot of people feel like they have to win. If I don't win, everyone here will think I'm no good. So it's really the mind that beats most people. So
Absolutely.
that comment you had about from what Hickson was saying is 100% correct.
Yeah, I chose that quote, Pete, because I think that Hickson Gracie, in my opinion and many other people's opinion, is the best BJJ practitioner of all time. And given your standing here in Australia, I thought it was very sensible to, you know, draw that similarity between yourself and Hickson.
Yeah, I can't compare myself to Hickson, but he is a great understander of jiu-jitsu.
Mm,
And a lot of people are blessed with fantastic techniques, but not many people are blessed with a really deep understanding of what jiu-jitsu actually is on the mat and in life as well. And he certainly has got that.
Can you share a little bit about that, Pete? In terms of can you shine some light on the depth of what jiu-jitsu is that yeah, you appreciate and that perhaps even a lot of experienced jiu-jitsu people might not really understand. Be wonderful to hear that from you.
Yeah, well, I spent a lot of time living in Brazil with Carlos Gracie, who you made a little comment about before. And he's one person very similar to Hickson who has an understanding of jiu-jitsu which blends into life and back to
Mm.
jiu-jitsu, so that it's just life. It's all
Mm.
part of life. He's been a mentor to me in those areas, which is hard to explain, but he probably has the best understanding of that, how jiu-jitsu fits into life and how life fits into jiu-jitsu, as anyone I've ever met.
Mm.
It's almost like he's raised up above everyone else and he can see things that others can't. But so living with him, I actually learnt a lot like about that. And jiu-jitsu is a funny sort of sport. It's always evolving. But the thing with jiu-jitsu is that it's a problem-solving sport.
Mm.
So sometimes parents say to me, saying, "Oh, why is jiu-jitsu different to karate?" And it's like it's a problem-solving sport which equips, especially children, with ability to solve problems later on in life. And as you know, with children, when they get through primary school, they get all that possible bullying and peer group pressure. Then when they get to teenagers, they have all the hormonal changes. And then they get to young adults and they have partners. There's a lot to navigate through all of this. And solving problems, or having the ability to solve problems, really, really helps people grow and go through life. But even when people go through divorce later on, older people, it's the same thing. Should I sell the house? Should I buy this? Should I rent this? In business as well. So by solving problems or knowing how to, I think life becomes much simpler.
Absolutely.
And you have a confidence in how to solve problems. So jiu-jitsu is very much a problem solving. I've got a couple of ex-professional rugby player students, not being rude to them, but I've mentioned this to them before. It's not like rugby where if you can hold that ball and run it over that back line before anyone grabs you, you're a legend. It's
Mm.
not that simple. There's questions being asked. He's holding my gi here. He's holding my lapel here. He's onto my footlock here in no gi. What do I do? So we have to be able to not only solve problems, but we have to solve problems very, very fast. And I think Hickson said one time that I remember, the person who can come up with the right answer or solve the problem the fastest, it will be the winner.
Mm.
So you not only have to find the right answer, but you have to find it quick. And when you get good at doing that, you can use those same skills in life in general, and you go, oh, life's pretty good with jiu-jitsu. And I have students who have said, oh, I haven't seen you for a while. Oh, I've had troubles, Pete. I got divorced. I had this, I had this. But the ones who stay with jiu-jitsu can deal with those problems external to jiu-jitsu in life much better than the ones who stop training jiu-jitsu.
Yes. And some of the things that come to mind, Pete, on that I think about is number one, jiu-jitsu presents a beautiful opportunity for you to get stuck on something and not know the answer to something, and then ask your teacher, your professor, or another student, or even watch something on YouTube these days, and you
Yep.
can find the answer. And when you do that time and time again, you start developing skills that you can then apply into other of life's negotiations
Yes.
where you've got a problem and you can feel stuck. But instead of giving up, you develop the understanding of, what, there must be a way around it. And you learn to look past the problem into the solution. And you build this level of confidence that you can overcome things. So that's a beautiful
That's
part of the art, isn't it?
exactly right, Matthew. And that's the gift of jiu-jitsu.
Mm.
When you understand jiu-jitsu really, really well, you'll understand that there is always an answer.
Yes.
May not be an answer that's going to allow you to win, but there's always what is the best thing to do next. That's what we have to try and find. And in life, maybe I can't do this exactly the way I want in life, but what's the best scenario for me to get out of this? So you're always getting the best out of yourself.
Yes, and another great example of this is, as much as they are painful and we don't really enjoy them, is when we get an injury where there's a problem, because often our injuries can stop us from moving and flowing a particular way like we want to.
Yeah.
But then from that problem comes an opportunity, because that can force us to develop other parts of our game, of our style, and we get stronger in other ways to then over time become better all round.
Yes.
Yeah.
The injuries is the injury what you mentioned there. That's a physical directive for us to find an answer how we can keep training, how we can overcome this injury. So it's a physical reminder that it's not just mental; it's physical, saying, "Well, you have to do something here because your right knee's not too good. How can you manufacture your game to make this better?"
Yeah. There's a book, Pete, called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. Louise Hay is one of the very first sort of personal development, self-help type people around. She was a beautiful woman. She's since passed, but she had a company called Hay House. So if you're into personal development and that sort of literature, then check out Hay House publications. But the point that I'm making, and the reason why I'm bringing up Louise Hay and the book You Can Heal Your Life, is she speaks about our body and injuries or sicknesses with our body
Yeah.
coming up for a purpose. So instead of there being just a miracle that you hurt your back or you banged your finger or something, she speaks about there being a underlining spiritual reason for whatever ailment we get. So maybe the jiu-jitsu gods give us injuries as that sort of gift. Who knows?
Well, it could be attached to karma somehow.
Mm,
Um, sometimes when probably the best results I had in competition were the ones where I was either injured or sick for the event. And then,
mm,
oh my God, I've got one time I had a 2 centimeter adductor tear 5 days out from this big event that I was having. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do now? But then you think to yourself, okay, well, I'm going to keep fighting. I have to keep fighting. How am I going to get around this? So you change your game, and all of a sudden you go, that was easier than what I thought. Whereas when you're 100% fit and strong and gung ho, you run into things not thinking as much. So
mm.
sometimes injuries can be given to us to make us think a little deeper and focus on the actual fight rather than just go in there and say, I'm going to smash this guy.
Mm. And where is the
I
place?
actually,
Sorry, Pete, I'll
yeah,
pause on my question and please continue.
yeah, I actually have a friend who was in the SAS,
Yeah.
and he's very very gung ho sort of guy. And I was saying to him that some of the best results I've had, I was either sick or injured, and he goes, that makes no sense at all.
Mm,
So in his mind, you have to be 100% fit, 100% ready to go. Okay, guys, let's go, 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 go. And if you're not 100% fit, you're not coming.
mm.
But what that discounts is that it doesn't allow for that natural strength that we have in the mind to take over, which goes beyond body parts and beyond injuries.
Yes.
So, but you have to have a bit of faith in it because it's no use fighting if you keep saying, "Oh, my knee, I'll be careful, my knee," because you're probably going to lose. But
Mm.
somehow, if you allow your mind to take you to another place, you can have a better result with a slight injury or sickness than what you would have had if you were 100% fit, which is a weird scenario, I know.
Yeah, and you reminded me of a time that I had last year where a beautiful dog that I loved very much passed away, and I was quite sad, but still going to training, knowing that jiu-jitsu is a pathway out of feeling so down. So I'd be there going to training, still almost every day, but not really even wanting to be in there, but completely humbled in that I wasn't attached at all to the outcome of any of the training, sparring, the roles that would happen at training. And the amazing thing that happened was I think that I had the best training I've ever had in my life in that particular period because of the level of humility, the openness, the vulnerability, the
Yes.
non-attachment. And so I'm wondering if it's these kinds of things that even applied in those competition results that you mentioned, where you had injury, but you still
Yeah.
did well in competition. Do you think it's that level of non-attachment, vulnerability, humility that can make a big difference sometimes?
Oh, for sure. I think I was it was 2003 in Brazil in the World Championships. I woke up in the morning ready for the morning of the day I was going to fight and had a shower, dry myself, and then I had to actually dry myself twice because I was sweating so much. And I could, you ever had it where you're swallowing and you have these like heavy razor blades in your throat,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I was like that. And I thought, I've got some sort of virus happening here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what am I going to do? I'm not going to fight. No, I'll go and fight. Anyway, won my first fight. Very happy with that. Second fight, I was in the third round, because I had a bye as well. So third round, this is going really, really good, I thought. Had this qualifier, because in those days you had to have qualify. The Brazilians had to qualify in the weekend before the Mundial, which is called Selectiva. And then because you had to either win a medal in the Mundial, Pan Am, Brasileiro Keeps to be qualified for the event. That all changed when we moved to the US in, I think, 2006. But anyway, in 2003, had this young fella who qualified through Selectiva. He was like, I think he was 23 and I was 41. And I thought to myself, I couldn't even stand up quick. I was really white. And anyway, the fight, I've got the video, and the fight went for 13 and a half minutes. It's supposed to be 10 minutes, but with all the stopping and starting, it went for 13 and a half minutes. And I thought to myself, I've just got to try and hang on here. I've got zero energy at all. He's going to be going crazy because he's 23. I just got to try and hold the fort as much as I can. Got a little sweep early on, then held on, got the maximum amount of penalties, nearly DQ. Just hang on. And then his coach, threw a water bottle, was swearing me in Portuguese. He, at the end of the fight, I won. He started crying. And I felt so sorry for him. And I thought, that's the nastiest way to have to win that I've ever actually seen. And I apologized, said, I'm sorry. That's the only way I could win. I couldn't do anything else because I had virtually no energy at all. But after that, I realized how strong the mind can be because, with the body in that condition, if you were just solely focusing on the body, you'd be thinking, I'm not going to do anything here. But the mind can carry through some amazing things. So that was probably one of my proudest competition moments, to be able to achieve that. And it was just through the mind conquering everything else. And probably ever since then, anything I've faced in life, I've just thought, I don't know what the outcome's going to be, but I can find the best out scenario for me.
Yeah. Losing that rigidity of the army general.
Yes.
And instead going into a situation freely and openly.
Yes.
And allowing the deeper spirit to follow through.
Everyone has
that's
that.
incredible.
You just have to find it and trust in it.
Yeah. And even when we think about submission in jiu-jitsu, I think that almost always our mind will give in before our body. So if you think about a choke, unless the person gets choked to sleep, that's the body giving in before the mind. But normally people will tap to submission. And mentally we're giving in, which then creates the tap to save our body from passing out. And you think about how many times is there an actual submission with somebody tapping, therefore mentally giving in, as opposed to getting something broken or going to sleep on it, and for very good reason. And it's better for our sport and better for us as people in our life to be able to preserve our bodies and our minds. And we don't want to be choking our teammates to sleep. But it's just also interesting when you look at the fact that most submissions happen as a giving in of the mind before the giving in of the body.
And with the elite part of the Gracie family, you'll find that it's, I don't know any that have actually probably tapped almost ever because they believe they can always find a way to escape. I think Hickson said that as well. You can start with a choke, you can start with an arm lock, start with a triangle. They'll find a way somehow to get out. And then in doing so, the person will go, oh, this is getting too hard, and let go. So the mind's a powerful tool. We just have to learn how to harness it, have faith.
So let's explore that, Pete, because it's a really interesting point when you say that the Gracie, you think that the Gracie family, Hickson, Henzo, Hoyler, Carlos, you might put in that as well. There's a number of Hodger, yeah.
He's never tapped in competition.
He's had what? Sorry, Pete.
He's never tapped in competition.
Yeah.
And I've trained with Hodger a lot because I've known him since he was, like 15. You can actually sense that it doesn't matter what you try to do with him, it's not going to work. And it's coming from him his mental attitude of whatever you're going to do to me, I'm going to get out of. So you have this feeling of what's the point? I
Mm.
can't actually, I'm never going to be able to get you anyway.
And I'd love to go deeper with you on this because I'm wondering that warrior spirit, that belief of doesn't matter what you're going to do to me, I'm going to get out.
Yeah.
It's not coming from a place of ego.
No.
If it was coming from a place of pure humility, there probably wouldn't be that will to win. So I'm wondering where that sort of energy comes from, where that in that moment where they're under great stress, it's about a 1% angle away from the body being
I
forced to give in. Where does the energy come from for that sort of belief?
think it comes from good mentoring and from early development years.
Mm.
I remember when Henzo was fought with Sakuraba in Japan, and he came to visit me the 3 days after that to stay with me in Torquay. And Sakuraba actually, don't know if you remember that fight or not, but dislocated his elbow.
Yes.
And Henzo was complaining when he came to my place and goes, I didn't feel anything. The referee shouldn't stop. I didn't feel anything.
Mm.
Henzo's lovely, but can be a little bit crazy. Why he stopped? And they go, well, maybe he stopped because the lower part of your forearm was going this way and it's supposed to go that way. But I didn't feel anything. I don't know why he stopped. And we went out surfing at Winky Pop. It was about 6 foot. And there was a massive current coming down from Winky Pop. And because it can get very on a northeasterly wind, it gets a very strong current. And he's there paddling like this nearly the whole day with one arm. And so most people would scream if they had their arm like that.
Mm.
But to him, it's like, I don't know why referee stopped. What's wrong with him? So I guess the mental ability of these guys is something like it just like totally overrides the default system of the body.
Mm.
And that mind gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And I guess somehow that telepathically goes to their opponent, and their opponent thinks, well, I have to virtually kill him to win.
Mm.
And they start to lose heart. And you would have seen many of Hodges' fights.
Yes.
Did you see the last one when he fought Bushesha, the second time he fought Bushesha?
That was an incredible one. But for those who
Yeah.
haven't seen it, please let's go into it.
He just walked out and he was like this. And since talking to him afterwards, he goes, yeah, I wasn't concerned at all. I was, respectful, but just really calm. And I go, it looked like you were really, really calm.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that. He was just like, he just stared to, yep. It's almost, I said to him, it looked like you'd actually fast forwarded the video and seen the result
Mm.
with you winning. And then you go backwards and go, now let's start the fight. How good would we feel if you knew exactly what was going to happen and the result was that you would win, and you go, now start, you go, yeah, no, how you going, everyone? No worries. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Come on. It'd be simple, wouldn't it? So through that confidence of mind, they almost have that foresight to know they're going to win. And for the competitor that's fighting them, it's like, oh, I can't fight this.
Mm.
So it's at another level.
What about those people out there who don't practice jiu-jitsu and they're hearing this and they're thinking, wow, I want to bring this sort of
Yeah.
ability into life's challenges, into the negotiations that take place in my business, in my
Oh,
family. Obviously, one of the answers that you'd say, Pete, is get out there and find your best local jiu-jitsu school and get on the mat.
I
As
believe there
a,
are people in business who probably have got those negotiation skills without ever doing jiu-jitsu. There would be.
all right, and how could those sorts of skills be developed if it's not on the jiu-jitsu mats?
Well, that's something that I don't know, but I'm just presuming that there must be other ways. It can't be the only way. There must be other ways. But I think with jiu-jitsu it's right in your face, more obvious. But there's probably other sports, other parts of life that can actually help you achieve that. But probably jiu-jitsu is so much right in your face of like, I have to work this out now and I can't breathe. I've got to relax and I've got to think, so that it's more attainable for most people through jiu-jitsu maybe.
Yeah, and maybe if we break this down in those other areas of life, just say we get, I don't know, Donald Trump, who I don't particularly like, but I do think he has some attributes that are good, and he's probably a very good negotiator, right?
Must be one of the best.
Yeah. And to the extent where, if he did a podcast, it'd probably be a lot better than rolling through negotiations in terms of giving negotiation tips. However, I think that there's probably some similar experiences that Donald Trump would have had hypothetically that are very similar to those Gracie family
Yeah.
athletes. For example, number one, being in the right environment with the right people. You speak of Hodger Gracie, him growing up in the family and having his uncle, his father, all of his family around him as a young boy, teaching him the way day after day. Those experiences and those learnings, those problem solving skills that you were speaking about earlier on. I know that Donald Trump's father, for example, was at least a reasonable, I think, from what I hear, quite a good property developer who would have been involved in a lot of negotiations, who would have taken Donald
Yeah.
Trump with him. So there's some similarities in terms of
Yes.
building experience, overcoming problems, having mentors around you. And you say, Pete, right in your face. That's also, I think, part of, if you lose on day one, you get back there on day two, perhaps even after having a pep talk from one of your family members or someone that you can look up to with new tools in the toolkit, helping you develop along the way. So there's those sorts of similarities, and it's probably the experience of jiu-jitsu. And when you drill down what all that entails, that if you can apply that to other areas of life.
It's a powerful. I remember seeing a lot of the young Gracies, Igor, Gregor, Hodger, High, and to a bit of it to a certain extent. A lot of them, when the class was being held, they'd be sitting there really quiet, just watching and learning.
Mm.
I can actually revisit those times, and they're very attentive and very, very respectful of their uncles and so forth. No arguing, just listening. So when you say that about mentoring with Donald Trump's father as an example, I think that's really, really important.
Yes.
Whereas these days it's kind of getting a little bit harder because a lot of the young people now, what are they, the millennials, kind of believe I can do it better, I can do this. So that probably hinders them a little bit, but I have faith that they're still going to come through that.
Yeah. What about in your own life, Pete? When we speak about the beautiful principles of jiu-jitsu, can you share a situation where you've overcome a challenge and how jiu-jitsu principles helped you do that?
We mentioned the injuries. You
Yeah.
mentioned injuries. I've had certainly a lot of injuries. I have a bit of an issue with my hip at the moment, but I'm working around that at the moment. But pretty much, even though I've had some really bad injuries and quite a few, I can pretty much do whatever I want to do, even at my age now. So I feel like, and people sometimes say, "Oh, but you're it's just genetics, but it's just genetics." And I go, I don't think I had any sort of positivity above 50% in genetics. I think
Mm.
I'm pretty much average. But I've always tried to overcome everything. I've always, in my life, I've always been obsessed with bettering myself.
Mm.
If I go on the Concept 2 rower, I can get fads on there, and I just want to better myself all the time. So um, I think that's probably come from jiu-jitsu, or either that or worked really well with jiu-jitsu.
Mm.
I'm not very egotistical at all. Um, uh, in fact, I'm probably low on the ego front. Um, so I think it's pretty much yeah, it's pretty much just a matter of wanting to improve yourself physically, mentally. So I'm a bit of a thinker. Sometimes I think too much. My
Mm.
wife says I think too much, but sometimes I try and overanalyze. I analyze and go a bit too far. I sort of bring myself back down again. But I'm always looking for something how I can improve.
Yeah, you've just articulated the perfect mindset for jiu-jitsu, haven't you, Pete? The always looking to improve, always pushing yourself to the brink. The
Mm.
point about the analysis, because like that problem solving point you were saying earlier, the I've tried other martial arts as well, but the level of analysis that you need to apply into jiu-jitsu, in my experience, and I think other people would agree, goes a bit deeper than the level of analysis that you need to apply into other sports. So when you say that you've got a tendency to almost overanalyze a bit too much, what a gift to have in jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah, but it can be a little bit annoying, especially when I see some people and they just walk in the door,
Yeah.
train hard, walk out again, and don't really remember too much about what they did, but train pretty good.
Mm.
I sort of think, oh, I should be more like that.
Yes.
But you can't really change who you are.
Yes. And it's also true, I believe, that there's no such thing as a bad quality. There are qualities, and depending on the context, it can be either good or bad.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So if you're the sort of person that analyzes a lot, which I am as well, sometimes I can do my own head in with a level of analysis. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, and my wife is somebody that can just go with the flow. And I think, man, I wish I could just do things easy like you and just let it rest. Like I'm here racking my brain still. But in different contexts, that can be a very helpful attribute. So,
Well, I think that helps to be an instructor and teacher and coach.
mm.
Someone who probably analyzes a little bit too much is going to make a better teacher than someone who doesn't analyze enough.
Do you think that there's ways of thinking that you've learned from jiu-jitsu that helps you better contribute to community, whether it be through the coaching or through the federation, the competitions you run?
I'm probably more understanding of people and probably a little bit more, yeah, probably more understanding of how everyone has got on a different path in life, and no path is bad. Whereas probably I used to feel more like, well, if it's not on the path similar to me, it can't be a good one.
Mm,
Whereas, I'm not like that at all anymore now. I
mm,
just think, okay, whatever path they're on. So I'm more, yeah, what's the word? I'm more understanding of people around me, and so more happy to accept different views than what I used to be. Maybe it's just old age. I don't know.
that maybe old age and wisdom go together, Pete.
Yeah, maybe, but that's what they say. You can't put a an old head on young shoulders. And probably if I knew what I knew now when I was 20, life probably would have turned out differently. But once again, I just believe that was karma. I had to learn what I had to learn, and I'm happy that I have learned, and hopefully I can keep learning because there's a lot more I want to do in life.
Yeah.
So
And I wonder whether jiu-jitsu can help you in terms of doing those things that you still want to do in life.
well, let's set the foundations. So
Mm,
I believe that it's and I think spending a lot of time with Carlos Gracie has really molded me to who I am today because I used to just look at him and think, you know, this is amazing, almost like how could he say that? Like he was talking, I remember one class he came out and he was talking, well, it must have been 92 or 93. And he spent 20 minutes in the class talking about how white sugar is the white devil and is going to be the next scourge on mankind. And everyone in the class was thinking, what's he talking
mm,
about? He's crazy guy. And I was thinking to myself, that's amazing. There could be something in that. And have a look where we are today.
mm,
White sugar is one of the biggest problems in the world.
yeah.
So he could see things in advance. And I think it's just because he had an accepting mind, because a lot of people just see what they want to see. They have the blinkers on. They don't really want to see outside there too much. They're just focused on running this way and running this way. They're not thinking about what's over there and what's over there. He's a very relaxed person. And I believe that being relaxed and open to what's happening in life, actually, you can absorb a lot of good things that you probably couldn't if you're just running from point to point. So he was a major, major reason for the way I think today. I saw him last year and he said, when are you going to come and stay with me again? And I said, oh, I'm pretty busy. I don't know. As I was saying it, I was thinking, I know what he's thinking. He's thinking, if you keep saying that and you keep being busy like that and you don't come and see me and stay with me, you're going to miss out on a lot of things in life.
Mm,
And as I was saying, oh, I'm pretty busy, because I said, oh, maybe I could come for a couple of weeks. He's in Florianopolis now in the south of Brazil. I said, maybe I could come a couple of weeks. And he goes, 3 months.
mm,
And I said, oh, I don't think I can come 3 months. And as I was saying, I knew what he was thinking because what he was thinking was right. What I was saying was wrong.
mm.
Just say, yep. count me in. I'll be there. We'll save 3 months. We'll go and have breakfast together, do this, do that, train. And that would be the best thing for me. But I just couldn't bring myself to say, oh, okay, I'll do it. It was 3 months.
So could this moment right here, right now on Rolling Through Negotiations podcast be the time where you dedicate yourself to actually committing to that 3 months?
Maybe that's where that's going to be a fall down. I mean, I'd love to, because I come back so much smarter after 3 months with him. But I have to try and make it work.
You reminded me of, I would say, myself of years ago and many people who love jujitsu but get very busy in their day, whether it be with family, whether it be their careers,
Yep.
and they don't get to training even though they would like it. And if you ask them why don't they go, it's just I don't have time to fit it in.
Yep. That's right.
And an amazing thing when you see time in jiu-jitsu in that way. And I learned this, I'd say the hard way, but it's just that you set your time to go to class. And at that time, almost no matter what, you go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think that's a weakness that everyone has.
mm,
I have it too. But yeah, by me not going there for 3 months, I kind of hate myself for it. But I can't promise that I will because, I've got a family running things here, and 3 months is a long time.
mm,
In saying that, I would enjoy every day of it. I
yeah,
wouldn't say, oh, I'm bored now, I've been here 3 months, because he's that sort of guy, and that would be that sort of environment that you just go, this is great. It's
mm.
like life-changing.
Alexander the Great had a way of almost conquering the whole world back in his time. And what he would do is he would land in a new place and he would then burn the boats. And it would mean that he had to, in order to survive and have all of his soldiers survive, succeed in this new location. So I'm wondering, Pete, if you were going to take a feather from Alexander the Great's cap and say, you know what, I'm locking in going there for 3 months. You're going to burn the boats, and then you have to work everything out around that, getting people to run your class, getting people to help you do whatever you're doing things from overseas.
I could. I'd take my family with me, but he's the sort of guy that would be disappointed if I didn't.
Yeah. And there's also the element of love and respect of a teacher, isn't there?
Well, here's what we said before about everyone needs a good mentor. I'm really, really lucky that somehow I got him as a mentor early on, because that's like, just pure luck. Because that's, I virtually owe who I am today to him. So, it's important. And so anyone who's looking to, start jiu-jitsu, doesn't matter if the guy's got world titles or not. Doesn't matter if he's doing what's really good at what's current at the moment. I think you have to look deeply into the person and think, is this person someone who can mentor me and guide me to where I want to be?
Mm. What are the attributes of a fantastic jiu-jitsu teacher and mentor? So obviously you've said, find that jiu-jitsu teacher that's going to be a great mentor to you. What are the what else, or what should we be looking for if we're there listening to Rolling Through Negotiations and we want to start jiu-jitsu, we want to get an amazing coach? What sort of attributes should we be looking for?
I know what not to look for.
Mm.
Not to look for would be someone who's regurgitating techniques,
Mm.
because a lot of people teach like that. They could watch a YouTube video and think, oh, I'll teach this in tonight's class. So those teaching on a technical basis doesn't really get you anywhere, because jiu-jitsu is much deeper than technique.
Mm.
Techniques are used to express a point of view that the teacher wants to get across to the students. So
Yes.
techniques are tools to get across his point or her point to the student. And some students need different tools to make them realize and understand that point.
Mm.
So teachers that just teach just based on technique, never going to do this, never going to do this, never going to do that, they're missing the whole point. There's something you need to see a lot deeper in a teacher than what just techniques there are.
Mm.
Because techniques are almost irrelevant. I mean, it is very important to know how to do a technique properly, but techniques are the end result of what you're trying to achieve. There's something much deeper in jiu-jitsu than just pure techniques.
Mm.
And the people who who understand that are coincidentally the ones who have been the most successful, like Hodger Gracie.
Mm.
You know, if you say to him, "What's your favorite technique?" he'll go, "Oh, don't know." And then someone will say, "Surely it's the mount." And he'll go, "Oh, yeah." And someone will say, "Surely it's closed guard." He'll go, "Yeah, yeah, kind of. Don't mind the back either, you know." So for him, techniques are just an expression of jiu-jitsu that he, how he feels on that day. I might
Yes.
try this. I remember I think it was 2011, he won his weight at the World Championships Black Belt. He was in the open weight and he was fighting Zhangji Barrow in the final. He was under the bleachers, laying on his back saying, "I don't think I can go anymore," to Henzo. And Henzo said, "You MF, been partying for 7 days. You've got one more fight to go, and now you're going to go and do it." Oh, okay. Okay. He was on a 7-day bender for the event. Already won his weight, was in the final against Zhangji Barrow. And then in the final, the craziest thing ever, he spends the whole 10 minutes or 9.5 minutes trying to take Zhangji down. Everyone's screaming, "Just pull your guard, close guard, pull your guard." 30 seconds to go. He goes, "Oh, okay." Pulls his close guard, gets the arm, throw the legs over. Zhangji's hands like this, ready to tap, and the buzzer goes.
Mm.
So he loses the open weight. And afterward, I said, "What the hell was that?" And he goes, "Pete, I was beaten by my own stupidity. I just wanted to take him down."
Mm.
I go, "You went on a 7-day bender,
Mm.
you just won your weight, you're in the open weight final, and you suddenly thought you're a judo king and thought you'd take him down
Mm.
when you could have just pulled your closed guard in the first 30 seconds and probably tapped him." Oh. So,
Mm.
I mean, they're funny stories, but he has belief. He believed that he could take Junkie down. And Junkie's very good on his feet.
Mm.
He believed he could take him down. And you go, well, I mean, how can you do that? But can you imagine going on a 7-day bender and then fighting at World Championships?
Personally, I couldn't imagine that, Pete. I
I
think if
couldn't
I
go.
went on a 7-day bender, I'd be lucky to go to class at the end of that, you know?
That's right. But if you have the ultimate in belief, you can do this, you can do this, just go in there, relax, you can do
Mm.
this. Somehow that guy could make it happen.
Yeah. And as you speak of this, I think of the Brazilian word jinga, which is almost like that, creative flow of
Yep.
art form. And I think of this attitude of jinga, which comes with it the confidence and not necessarily hard work, but pure, raw, natural talent that you see bucket loads of when you watch the Brazilian soccer team, for example. And I'm thinking of this kind of energy within Hodger Gracie
Yeah.
in that environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's he's probably the classic, probably Carlos to me is probably the main mentor of jiu-jitsu in the world, and the best possible person who could actually be that main person is him. And then someone like Hodger is someone who has the so much confidence and belief in himself. Like I remember he couldn't even touch his toes.
Mm.
He's not really like and he wouldn't mind me saying, he's not like a, genetically freak athlete,
Mm.
not in any way, but he has a mind that has belief, so much so. I remember another time, World Championships in Brazil, Marcelo Garcia took his back, hooks in, and I don't think Marcelo Garcia, he's one of the best ever.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever lost a fight when he took someone's back.
Mm.
Hodges calm in the face, no problems, slowly takes the hooks out, gets out of the back control and wins. And people say, how can you do that? But he actually believed that he could. That's what we said before. He was thinking to himself, he can't tap me from here. Not only that, he can't keep the back. I'm going to escape the back and I'm going to win. So, yeah, it's an amazing tool that we can develop and have, but we have to have those mentors, the good coach in the beginning. Have to remember they had those mentors from birth.
Mm.
So they have a bit of an advantage.
Maybe even before birth, Pete, in their DNA, when they're being formed in the womb there, they might be doing some jiu-jitsu classes.
Well, Carlos believes that.
Mm.
Carlos believes now it's in his DNA. After a few generations, he said it becomes part of the DNA. So he
Yeah,
believes
because there's a lot of study that's gone into intergenerational trauma as an example. Yeah.
So it's amazing what actually can happen that people don't realize. So we have to open our eyes and look around, not go to those day-to-day trudging around and miss all of this stuff.
And that could
It's
be
probably what
also,
it's
could
probably
also
what
be,
I've learned the last 20, 30 years, I've learned a lot more in tune with myself and where I sit in the world. Whereas I don't think when I was 20, I ever actually thought about myself and where I fit in the world at all. Whereas now I'm sort of, I'm pretty comfortable and know where I am and everything.
and this also goes into the karma principle that you were speaking about earlier.
Yep. Don't believe I've done anything really wrong to anyone, not majorly anyway. And sometimes I would also say, if you said, Pete, you consider yourself lucky, I would say, yes, I'm a lucky person.
Mm.
If there's something going to happen, I feel like I've got a good chance of that being good for me.
Yeah.
So it makes me really happy in life because yeah, I feel like I'm a lucky person.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful belief to hold because whether it's true or not, the pureness of you believing that you're a lucky person, that belief in itself will play out
Yep.
towards you being that lucky person. So,
So you're a karma believer as well. I think that's the essence of karma, what you just said right there, Matthew.
yeah, how we believe is how we can create, right?
Yes. Well, there's a saying, how you believe is, how you perceive is how you believe, or it's the other way around, or something like that. But there's some sort of saying about that. But yeah, that's very important. How you look at things is very, very important. And also being negative, I believe, takes on negative energy, which I actually think can bring on cancers and, all sorts of illnesses
Mm.
just by always how some people saying, oh, well, oh, another day, oh, and you sort of go, gee, this person's really, really negative about a lot of things. I don't like being around people like that because I feel like I can take it on board.
Yeah, so true. And that's also another reason why I think jiu-jitsu is so beautiful because it helps us clear our minds and stay in a more positive place so that when we do face the stresses of everyday life, we're going into a complex negotiation or we've got this family environment that, we may not be particularly enjoying, whatever it is,
Yep,
it helps us stay more positive by training jiu-jitsu and then being able to step into those difficult situations with
yep,
that level of positivity and with that right energy, we can then evaporate often that hostility around us. So it's incredible how I think that's a really incredible one because I had a period of time where I would say to myself, I can't train jiu-jitsu. And I took some years off of training, feeling like I couldn't fit in the time to my day. And this is an example where the positive energy we get from training jiu-jitsu then helps us resolve everyday problems so much faster. So it actually creates more time in our day from us training. Yeah,
yes.
so it's
And there's a real brotherhood there as well because a lot of the people who understand that, they're just great to hang out with. And it's
mm,
a great time to share with someone else who understands what's going on.
yes,
So most people have been training for, like, I don't know, 5 years plus would probably understand that feeling. And so that's why you can have classes where there's 10 people in the class who've trained for 15 years.
mm,
And because they all understand and it's a real brotherhood.
yes. And it's very common that people do their class and they hang out afterwards, just have a
Yep.
chat, practice some things. I personally feel like the end of the class, that hangout time is the best part of the class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you ever need anything, some of those guys in the class, most of those guys in the class are going to say, if you call them and say, yep, I can help with that, no worries.
Yes.
It's a real networking thing as well.
Yeah. So beautiful. Pete, what about, here's more of a generalized question, but I'd love to hear your view on it. The evolution of BJJ. So we've spoken a bit about, your days with the Gracie family, the warrior spirit, the MMA side, Hickson and Henzo fighting in, shows like Pride and MMA like UFC, which some of the Gracies have fought in. Do you feel like Jiu-Jitsu has evolved from being a fighting art to more of a sport?
Well, I think it can be both. I think when someone say they do a martial art, I think they probably indirectly or directly mean that it's not hasn't got a sporting aspect to it. But it certainly can be a martial art and a sport as well. Obviously, jiu-jitsu is a pretty big sport. I think it's one of the biggest participated sports in the world now. not viewers, probably football, soccer is probably the biggest supporter base of viewers, but I don't know really many people who play soccer.
Mm.
But from a participation point of view, I think in Australia, it's probably certainly top 10, could be like 6 or 7 now. AFL is number 1 participation in Australia.
So jiu-jitsu 6 or 7.
I reckon 6 or 7, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so
Amazing.
AFL has, I think over 100,000 in Victoria alone.
Yeah.
Participation. So it's by far and away the number 1.
Mm.
But I think jiu-jitsu would be somewhere just after netball and basketball.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's getting bigger and bigger all the time. They just had 8,500 at the Euros in Portugal. You know, they had 13,000 at the Las Vegas Masters.
And these are athletes, right?
Yeah, well, they at the in Las Vegas they have 32 mats, and it goes for 5 days. You go 32 mats. How can they go for 5 days?
Yeah.
And there's not many sporting events that would have that many participants.
Yeah.
Probably the only sport that would have more participants on one day would be a marathon, Melbourne Marathon, New York Marathon. They would have more participants, probably 20,000 something, but it's only one day.
Yes.
So it's a big sport, and I think I would consider it a sport and a martial art together because it has such good core values, which what martial arts are known for. Confidence, humility, like you said. So it's got all the core values of a martial art, but it's actually practicing a sporting environment. But people who don't actually compete still love it as well. So it has to be both.
Yeah. And you've been through so much in your journey with jiu-jitsu, Pete. You've been around for how long? How many years exactly? How many years ago did you start your journey with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
First time I went to Brazil was in 1990.
Mm.
So what's that? That's 35 years.
Yes, that's amazing.
Mm.
So
we had our 30th anniversary for DeBean Jiu-Jitsu last year. So DeBean Jiu-Jitsu started in 93. So 2023, October 2023, we had our 30th anniversary. Last year was the Federation's 30th anniversary because the Federation was incorporated in 94. So, and the Federation was the first federation outside of Brazil. It was before the World Federation, the IBJJF. So it was only the CBJJ, which is the Confederation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is the national federation in Brazil, was the only one in the world. And then we started the AFBJJ second. And then the IBJJF started in 96.
And what's been your fuel to keep the federation going for 30 years and your own, Peter DeBean Academy?
Mm. Well, the DeBean Jiu-Jitsu just ticks along because, Max is running Torquay now. We've got a few academies around and it just sort of ticks along. The federation, not too much anymore, but probably in the early years had to run it like a dictator a little bit, which I'm not a dictator sort of person at all. I'm, probably the opposite. But early on, there was probably a few protractors here and there, and it was almost like you have to hang on to this and run this because you're going to do what's best for jiu-jitsu here, but other people could just ruin the whole thing. But now I don't feel like that so much anymore at all. In fact, because I feel like it's on its path now and it's like, can't be stopped anymore, really. It's like the IBJJF. They have the protractors as well. But if you're honest and you said to those protractors, now be honest, would we have jiu-jitsu the way it is today if IBJJF never existed? If they're honest with themselves, they can't say we'd be better off because IBJJF has actually set the foundation. They're the only federation in the world that actually has certifications, and all the best people that have ever been are certified under IBJJF. They're all the world champions. So they're all certified by IBJJF. There's a lot of other federations vying for competition space, but the IBJJF is the king and the most respected. And I would like to think that the AFBJJ is the same in Australia.
Yes. So bringing the quality assurance as a part of what jiu-jitsu means.
Yes, because it's jiu-jitsu has to be nurtured and looked after, and has to be grown in a way that allows it to grow naturally, but at the same time keeps its core values. So I consider myself kind of like a housekeeper for the AFBJ, and Carlos is the housekeeper for the IBJJF, and Marcelo, who's the CEO there, does an awesome job. He thinks similar to me. Just trying to keep everything going. It's not about making money. It's not about making crazy decisions. It's just a matter of monitoring and keeping the art, so the sport and the art continues to grow as it has. And I mean, if you look at the graphs on a flow chart of jiu-jitsu, it virtually just keeps going up.
Mm.
It's a vertical line almost. So somebody has to get credit for that, and I think IBJJF has to take that credit.
Mm.
There's always other aspects to the art, like ADCC do a good job, but their interest, their interest is really to hold events, make a spectacular event if they can, something that's a bit different, looks good. Yeah, that's great. But the godfather of the jiu-jitsu competition circuit has to be IBJJF.
Yeah, but this is also a really strong example of the mentorship that you speak of, because there's the federation globally that your own mentor, Carlos, has nurtured and taken care of, and following in the steps of your own mentor, then you replicating a similar model across Australia, I think is a good example of how.
The funny thing, Matthew, is that it looks like on the surface he's just copying Carlos. But in actual fact, I've never actually had that copying thought in my head. I've just naturally found myself doing stuff. And Gregor Gracie said to me the other day, he said, "God damn, you're just like Kalios."
Mm.
And I thought, that's a weird thing to say, because I guess he ingrained things into me that I don't actually physically think that I have to copy this and do it this way because he would do it this way. I just find myself doing things that happen to be similar to what he would do, because maybe he's, infiltrated my thinking system and made me think like that. I don't know, but
Yeah,
it's a curious thing now that I think about it.
maybe it's the way that we align with our
Yes,
mentors. If when we find the right mentor and we open ourselves to our mentor,
yes,
we take on and learn and develop in the ways that our mentor shows us of the world.
it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And then I wonder, if it's a very holistic level when we speak about a federation, but then there's other things like, mentors and even our teacher who can be our mentor in jiu-jitsu as they're showing us jiu-jitsu techniques. Whilst they're showing a technique, are they showing us much more than just where to put our legs, our hips, and our
Yes,
arms, but instead are they showing us thinking, are they showing us values in different situations?
yes,
And
that's
the
exactly
depth
right,
of the
Matthew.
learning is incredible.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But you have to be open to that. Otherwise, all you see is the techniques.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's exactly right. There's more than meets the eye, is what they say.
Yeah. Absolutely, Pete. And we've reached the moment in time where we give our listeners, we got this tradition, Pete, where we give our listeners 3 takeaway points from each and every single episode of rolling through a negotiation, so that they can take nicely packaged principles that we've been speaking about to start using in their own negotiations. I've done this once before, but my heart says, hey, do it again. I was wondering, Pete, would you like to have the honor of giving our listeners 3 takeaway points based on what we've been speaking about? They can start as principles applying in their negotiations.
I've got one.
Yeah. All right.
Which
You do one, and I'll do the other 2. Let's let's
okay.
let's let's go with yours first.
Okay. Number one is, whenever you're negotiating, doesn't matter what it is, always focus more on what's good for the other party to have. So most people, when they go into negotiation, are going to focus on what they want to get out of the negotiation.
Yeah.
I want to get this. As long as I get this, I'm happy to let him have that. I want this. It's important that I get this. I think if you go into negotiation and you honestly try and negotiate and give your negotiating party what they want,
Yes.
you're always much better off. There was a wise man that said to me many years ago, when you're making a contract, always make sure there's a good drink in it for the other person. Otherwise, that contract will not last. It'll break down. If he's got a good drink out of it as well, you go, oh, I'm really happy. Obviously, if both parties walk away really happy, that's great. But as a negotiator, I think that if you always focus on the other person's coming out really, really happy, you're going to be happy anyway.
Yeah.
I know it sounds a bit in reverse, but
But it makes a lot of sense, Pete. As you speak these words, it also sounds like for some reason the meaning of looking after your training partner comes to
yes,
mind.
yes,
If you want friends to train with and practice your jiu-jitsu techniques, you
yep,
don't want to be this big bully who injures your friends, but instead you want to make sure that your training sessions include, yes, you're doing stuff to develop, but also looking after your training partner, not hurting them, making sure that they're enjoying the experience as well. So they're going to come and want to train with you again. So that way you're both going to develop and reach the full rewards
yep,
of that
yep,
journey. It's like what you're saying here. You don't want to rip off the other party, because how are you going to bring the deal to its fruition? Yeah, how are you going to, how likely is it, if you've completely rip the other party off in the negotiations, how likely it is that they're going to try and escape somehow and
that's
not live
right.
up to their end of the bargain?
That's right. And there's a bit of karma involved too. I remember one time when Max was one trip when he was staying with Henzo and he was doing a no-gi class. He doesn't mind no-gi, but he's actually probably as good at no-gi or even better than gi, but he actually likes gi. But he did a no-gi class there in one of John Danaher's classes in New York. And there it was full of people, as you can imagine. And there was one guy that was paired up with Max and all hyped up and ready to go, ready to go. Come on, let's train. You know, I want to do this foot lock. I want to leg lock. And Max goes, hang on, let's go to the toilet. He goes, no, come on, just train. And Max goes, no, I'll be back. I'm just going to the toilet. No, come on. I've driven an hour and a half for this. The guy was going, and Max goes, no worries, here you go. Bang, 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 bang. You happy now?
Hmm.
So all that guy was thinking about was me, 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 me. I don't care about you. I don't even care if you have to go to the toilet. I just want to get your foot lock and the leg lock.
Mm,
So I probably imagine that he hasn't gone too far.
mm,
Had no consideration. When Max was telling me, I was thinking, geez, had no consideration for his partner at all.
mm.
I've driven an hour and a half for this. Give me your leg. Give me your foot. Can you imagine
Yeah.
training someone like that? You're going to go, hey, mate, go and train somewhere else.
Yeah.
He's like a little germ jumping all over him.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
So in that negotiation, that was completely one-sided.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we're speaking before about what makes what are some of the qualities of a really good jiu-jitsu teacher. And I feel like one of the other qualities that you're sharing about here as well is a teacher who teaches from the perspective of empowering his or her students rather than showing how good their technical knowledge is.
Yes, Matthew. You summed that up perfectly.
Mm,
Whereas I always feel like the more insecure the coach is, the more he'll rely on specific techniques.
mm,
And a lot of those techniques he won't even be that good at, but he's actually just done them 20 or 30 times. So he actually can look like he does them well and probably can do it well. But if it's a little bit different or a little bit changed, he's lost.
yeah.
And
What's more important, Pete, to learn techniques or to learn concepts?
concepts,
Yeah.
because techniques are just like the final thing. Like if you look at most people with triangles, every time I do seminars, people say to me, "Oh, I don't like triangles because they always stack me." And you go, "Yeah, have you thought about why they stack you?" Oh, yeah, I don't know. Because when someone does a triangle, the last thing you see, say the right foot goes up over the shoulder, left foot comes over the right ankle, pull the person down over here, and they tap. So when people are watching that, that's what they focus on. They focus on that last movement here. But the first movement should always be the right knee down and the head's here. And then the hand comes across, grabs the ankle and puts it underneath the left leg. And then the knee comes up when the lock is on and down and then a tap. But if you just see the last thing and you keep watching it, you see with the knee up. When the knee is up, that's when they get stacked.
Mm.
People who like stacking, when the knee is up, they push that knee straight towards your head and you have to let go. But if you put the knee down and put the lock on, and then when the lock's on, then you bring the knee up, they can't do that.
Mm.
So probably the people who have troubles with those triangles are the ones who are just looking at it specifically from a technical point of view, but they're only seeing the last bit. If they understood in depth how the triangle works, that wouldn't be a problem for them. But I get that question all the time. He's really big. He stacks everyone. I go, well, hey, show me. And sure enough, the knee goes straight up. Of course he's going to stack. So the understanding of the concept is the most important thing. So what they're seeing is the tap and the knee is up. What they should be, the concept actually is to get the lock on as soon as you can without keeping that knee in a position where it can be stacked. So that's just one example of concepts being more important than techniques.
Yeah.
If you just focus on techniques, you're going to get lost quick. And you go, oh, didn't work. Show me another one. Show me another one. I remember one time I went to Brazil with this guy and we were training, and this was really early on. We were training and there was a kid there who was 14 or something, orange belt, who was way better than us. We were men. 14-year-old orange belt in Brazil can be pretty tough sometimes. I know that sounds funny, but it's true. And he was saying to the kid, how many arm locks do you know? And the kid goes, huh? And he goes, probably know 25, 26. And the kid goes, arm locks? Yeah, how many do you know? And the kid goes, arm locker? One arm lock? Is there more than one? I only know one. But he could do that one in 50 different ways. The other guy was calculating how many different ways he could do it. 25, 26. So he was focusing on pure technique. And the kid's just focusing on, well, once the technique's nothing, I know all these positions where I can put that one technique on. So that was a major difference when I saw that as well. I thought, yeah, this is something a bit different here. He's calculating, 29C, 32B, because it's all a technical library in the back of his head.
Yeah.
Whereas the kid's saying, I only know one, but I'll get you with it 100 times in all different positions.
Yeah. And there's also humility in that, right? There's humility in that mastery.
Yes.
And simplicity as a result of that humility. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the high number of techniques is really just so, well, my dick's bigger than yours.
Yeah.
And you go, well, he keeps tapping him. He's 14. I think I'll do what he's doing.
Yeah.
I'll learn like him.
I feel like, Pete, when you speak of concepts, the number one most essential, or even the word essential sounds a little bit egotistical, doesn't it? I'm trying to think of the right word. Maybe the purest cornerstone concept of jiu-jitsu is breath. Being able to keep our breath, breathing properly throughout the jiu-jitsu journey, each training session. For example, an example of that is how many times people give up mentally because they get physically tired, which can often start because the pattern of their jiu-jitsu experience isn't going the way they want it to go. They could be in a competition match or something and the other person's dictating the shots. Their breathing then becomes irregular. That pattern gets worse. Their breathing becomes worse. They start getting tired. They start getting mistakes. They start getting weaker mentally, and then eventually they give in mentally. Yeah, I was just I'm sharing this, but I also love to hear your views on this, Pete.
Well, I think in international sport, there was a document that I saw years ago that said that as soon as the heart rate goes above 80%, the decision making just falls away very fast. So if you can keep your heart rate down at, and once again, Hodge Gracie would be a good example. Never really seen him puff. If your heart rate's around 100, doesn't go above 100 during a fight, you've got to make really good, smart decisions. If you're running at, 160, 170, you're just going to be snatching and grabbing at techniques on the way, hoping you get the right one. So certainly the breathing, like you say, is probably the most important.
I'm glad I got the tick there, Pete.
Yeah,
It'd
it's a
be
big tick. Yep.
yeah,
So
good.
you keep your heart rate down low. It's proven you will make better decisions,
Mm.
which makes sense because you can feel the blood pumping from the heart pumping so fast, and then you can feel your head sort of going redder and hotter. So you're not going to make good decisions.
Yeah,
That's just, pretty obvious, really.
yeah. And that's something we can use in all of our life because you're speaking now about decision making. So what if that decision is, in a complex negotiation or in a big argy-bargy with a family member, or you might be
Yep.
with a co-worker, or in a negotiation that's important for your community. If we can breathe properly throughout that experience, we're going to make better decisions
Yeah.
through the
But not
experience as
everyone
well.
believes that. I remember I
Yeah.
had this guy, not arguing, but I think I ended up walking away. But he was saying, that jiu-jitsu is all bullshit. I've worked in the back rooms of a butcher shop all my life, and the person who gets the blood boiling the fastest always, yeah, can't really argue with this guy. But yeah,
I probably wouldn't be breathing that calmly if I was in front of a hot-blooded butcher with a big knife in his hand. Yeah,
yeah, the guy who gets the blood boiling the fastest always wins.
yeah. Yeah. To give three takeaway points, I'll give three, Pete, because I was looking at this and I was thinking, you know what? These three are great points I took a note of as you were speaking earlier, and I think that our listeners will really benefit from each of these. So I will give all three.
Yep.
Number one is what you were saying earlier, Pete. You were speaking about doing what you love.
Yep.
And you were saying that when you do what you love, you're training jujitsu, you're living jujitsu, you have a mentor that you love, you have a life, you have a practice, an art form that you really love, you're going to be much better at it. And what's a funny thing on that as well is even if you never get any good at something, if you purely love it, who really cares anyway?
Yeah.
But by purely loving something in the truest, purest form of love, you will inherently, absolutely become very good at it. But it's not the getting good that really matters. It's that journey and experience of love itself that's so fulfilling. So, number one, bringing love
You're
into
not bad,
your
are you? That was pretty
negotiations.
good.
Thanks, Pete. I'm just mirroring the words that you said
Oh,
earlier. So,
that's fantastic. Sum up that one.
number two is the principle of problem solving. So, you were speaking about, Pete, there, the way that jiu-jitsu helps us develop problem solving skills. And in our negotiations, whether you practice jiu-jitsu or not, getting the ability, developing a way of problem solving, overcoming problems to reach outcomes that you want to be achieving is going to be an amazing way to be able to overcome challenges and problems in negotiations, because they will come up, especially those negotiations that are important to you. But if you can develop ways of overcoming those challenges, those problems, and staying strong and resilient, you're going to get a better outcome in the long run.
Well, that's 100% true because probably if someone asked me what's the number one thing that you would like your son or daughter to have in life, I would probably say a very high problem solving ability.
Mm,
Because if you think about it, hardly anything's going to be a problem in life if you can solve it.
mm. Yes.
So it's like that's got to be the number one thing that you would want to have.
Yeah.
You might need to get fitter. Okay, that's the problem. Get fitter. You might need to get stronger. Okay, get stronger. You might need to, negotiate this, and you go, oh, how can I do this? Okay, I'm a good problem solver. So problem solving is it's really a pretty good thing.